You're an embarrassment. Look at you, overflowing that dress like a sack of yams. Kofi's voice cut through the Kumasi market like a machete. Vendors froze. His wife Amma stood beneath the cassava stall, clutching wilted greens, tears pooling but refusing to fall. He gestured wide, mimicking her rounded body. Scattered laughter erupted from onlookers. I deserve a queen, not this. The word dripped contempt. 50 witnesses. One shattered woman. One moment that would echo across generations. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone who vowed to love you? Drop your story below, because what you're about to hear is one of those real-life stories that cuts deep. This is more than African folklore. This is a touching story about resilience that millions of life stories across the world echo. These African stories teach us that karma never forgets. But here's what Kofi didn't know. His fat wife was hiding a medical truth so devastating, it would shatter his reputation, destroy his engagement, and leave him begging for mercy he'd never shown. Stay until the end. You won't believe how this unfolds. 8 years earlier, Amma had been radiant. She moved through their Ashanti village like sunlight on water, slender, graceful, pursued by half the young men in Kumasi. Kofi, a rising trader in imported fabrics, courted her with poetry and promises. He whispered that marriage was partnership, not ownership. Their wedding followed the old custom. The elder spoke the vow, through storm and harvest, you bind as one. It meant unconditional support. Kofi had smiled when he repeated it. The first 3 years were happy. No children yet, but they were young. Amma ran their small home with quiet efficiency. Kofi's business grew. Neighbors called them blessed. Then in year 4 something shifted. Amma's body began to change. Weight crept on slowly at first, 5 kilograms, then 10. Her ankles swelled by evening. Fatigue arrived like an uninvited guest and refused to leave. She tried dieting, walking before dawn, cutting fufu from her meals. Nothing worked. The scale climbed. 10 kilograms became 20. 20 became 30, Kofi noticed. Of course he noticed. Maybe you're eating when I'm not looking, he said one morning, voice light. But eyes cold, Amma said nothing. What could she say? She barely ate anymore. By year 6, she had gained 40 kilograms. Her face rounded. Her dresses strained at the seams. The village women whispered, lazy, undisciplined, lost her beauty, and Kofi stopped defending her. He stopped many things. He refused to walk beside her at community gatherings. When friends visited, he introduced her as my burden. He threw away her favorite blue wrapper, the one she'd worn on their wedding night, saying it made her look like a pregnant elephant about to give birth to twins. At night, he moved to a separate room. I can't even look at you, he said. You've given up, Amma prayed. She prayed for understanding, for change, for something to break this curse her body had become. But prayers felt like smoke, rising, invisible, unanswered. The real breaking point came on a Saturday in late November. The village chief's eldest daughter, Efua, was celebrating her engagement. 200 guests filled the chief's courtyard. Drummers, dancers, tables heavy with jollof rice and grilled tilapia. Kofi arrived alone, dressed in gold kente cloth, smiling like a prince. Where is your wife? Elder Kwame asked. Kofi waved dismissively. She's home. Too sick with her eating disease, but Amma's mother had other plans. She'd pressured Amma to attend, to show her face, to stop hiding like a criminal. So Amma came wearing a simple brown dress, her body wrapped tight to minimize her shape. When Kofi saw her enter the courtyard, his face darkened like a storm cloud. She approached cautiously, tried to smile. I thought, you thought what? His voice was loud enough to turn heads. That you could embarrass me here too? Guests paused mid-conversation. The drummers kept playing, but several dancers slowed. Amma's voice dropped to a whisper. I just wanted to look at you. Kofi gestured at her body, his hands sweeping up and down. You dare show your face at a celebration? You make me look like I can't provide, like I starve you when the truth is you can't stop eating. Silence rippled outward. Even the drummers stopped. Amma held a small plate of food. She'd taken it to be polite, though she had no appetite. Kofi's eyes locked on it. You've had enough for 10 women, he snarled. He ripped the plate from her hands. Ceramic shattered against the stone courtyard. Rice scattered. The clay pieces, hand-painted by a local artist, a gift from the chief's family, lay in jagged fragments. Gasps. A few awkward laughs. Most people looked away. Elder Kwame stood. "Kofi, this is my wife," Kofi snapped. "And I have every right to discipline her gluttony." Amma stared at the broken plate. Something inside her cracked too. But it wasn't shame. It was clarity. She didn't cry. Didn't shout. She bent slowly, gathered 3 of the larger clay pieces and slipped them into her pocket. Then she turned and walked out of the courtyard, spine straight, head high. Behind her, the party resumed. Conversations restarted. Laughter returned, but 50 people had witnessed it. 50 people who knew Kofi as a church deacon, a respected trader, a man who presented himself as a model husband, and 50 people who now saw the rot beneath the polish. What they didn't see, what no one saw, was Amma walking home in the dark, whispering a prayer that wasn't for forgiveness. It was for clarity, for truth, for the strength to survive whatever came next, because somewhere deep inside, beneath the weight and the shame and the exhaustion, she felt it. This wasn't normal. This wasn't her fault. Something was wrong. Something no one could see, and one day, someone would finally listen. Amma stopped apologizing. That was the first change. Small, invisible to most, but seismic to her. She stopped saying, "I'm sorry," when Kofi looked at her with disgust. Stopped shrinking when he entered a room. Stopped pretending the humiliation at Afua's engagement party hadn't split her open. The village, however, had opinions. "A woman must bend like grass," her mother said 3 days after the incident, hands busy peeling cassava. "Kofi is frustrated. You must try harder, as if Amma hadn't already tried everything. As if willpower could override whatever was hijacking her body. She attempted another diet. Boiled vegetables, no oils, portions so small a child would leave hungry. Her body ignored it. The weight stayed. The swelling worsened. Some mornings her fingers were so puffy she couldn't remove her wedding ring. Kofi noticed that too. "You can't even take off your ring anymore," he said one evening, voice flat. "Your body's consuming itself." He wasn't wrong. She felt consumed, exhausted by 10 a.m. breathless climbing stairs. Her reflection in the market stall mirrors showed a stranger. Rounded face, thickened neck, eyes tired beyond her 32 years. The village women whispered louder now. If she was disciplined, this wouldn't happen. "My cousin lost weight after her 3rd child. It's about commitment." 2 weeks after the engagement party, Kofi escalated. He brought a kosua to their home. A kosua was 24, slim as a reed with bright eyes and a laugh that carried. She worked at the fabric shop 2 stalls down from Kofi's. Amma had seen her before, always polite, always smiling. Now she stood in Amma's kitchen, looking uncomfortable. "This," Kofi said, gesturing at a kosua like a prize, "is what a real woman looks like. Someone who takes care of herself." Amma said nothing. She finished washing the breakfast dishes, dried her hands and walked out to the back courtyard. She heard a kosua murmur something apologetic, heard Kofi's laugh in response. She stood beneath the mango tree, the same tree where Kofi had proposed 8 years ago, and felt something harden inside her chest. "I will not beg for crumbs of respect anymore." That night, she moved her clothes to her mother's house. Not all of them, just enough. A strategic retreat, not surrender. "Are you leaving him?" her mother asked, alarmed. "I'm giving us space," Amma said. The lie was easier than the truth. "I'm leaving before I disappear entirely." Kofi didn't come after her. Didn't call. Didn't ask her to return. Within a week, he was seen walking through the market with a kosua, holding her hand, laughing. The village gossip machine roared to life. She abandoned her husband. She's too proud. She drove him away with her laziness. Amma let them talk. She had a different problem now. Survival. She started selling handmade baskets at the smaller market on the village edge, the one where tourists rarely went, where prices were lower but judgment was lighter. Her fingers remembered the weaving patterns her grandmother had taught her. The work was slow, meditative. It gave her something to control when everything else felt uncontrollable. She saved every cedi, opened a secret account at the Kumasi Women's Cooperative Bank, account number ending in 4739, using her mother's address. Told no one. 3 weeks into her extended visit, something shifted again. Dr. Abena arrived in the village. She was the new clinic doctor, female, maybe 40, with silver-threaded locks and a calm, assessing gaze. The government had finally funded a proper health post, and Dr. Abena was its first permanent physician. Amma met her by accident. She was at the well filling water jugs when dizziness hit. The courtyard tilted. She grabbed the well's edge, breathing hard. "Sister, sit." A firm hand guided her down. "When did you last see a doctor?" Amma looked up into Dr. Abena's concerned face. I haven't. There's no money for—" "The clinic's first month is free. Government program." Dr. Abena crouched to eye level. "Your face is very swollen. Your ankles, too. How long has this been happening?" 4 years. Dr. Abena's expression sharpened. 4 years? And no one thought to run tests? Amma's throat tightened. "They said it was. That I was eating too much. Who said that?" "Everyone." Dr. Abena was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, extended a hand. "Come to the clinic tomorrow. 10 a.m. I want to run blood work, maybe an ultrasound. Something's not right, and it's not about food." Amma wanted to refuse, wanted to say she couldn't afford it, couldn't risk owing someone, couldn't handle one more disappointment, but Dr. Abena's eyes held something Amma hadn't seen in years: belief. "Okay," Amma whispered. That night, she prayed. Not the desperate prayers of earlier months, but something quieter. She lit a candle at the small altar in her mother's house, let the flame steady, and whispered, "If there's an answer, let me be strong enough to hear it." The next morning, she walked to the clinic. It was a low concrete building painted white, still smelling of fresh paint. Dr. Abena was waiting, clipboard in hand, professional but warm. "Let's start with basics," she said. "Weight, blood pressure, blood sugar. Then we'll see." Amma stepped on the scale, 92 kilograms. 4 years ago, she'd been 52. Blood pressure, 165/98. Dangerously high blood sugar, elevated but not diabetic. Dr. Abena frowned at the readings. "I'm going to draw blood for a full hormone panel. Cortisol, thyroid, insulin levels, and I want an ultrasound of your abdomen." "What are you looking for?" Amma asked. "Answers." Dr. Abena met her eyes. "Your symptoms don't match simple weight gain. The facial swelling, the fatigue, the sudden onset. This looks metabolic." Amma understood maybe half the words, but she understood the tone. "You're not crazy. This is real." The tests took 2 hours. Blood draws, an ultrasound that revealed nothing obvious, a urine sample. Dr. Abena sent the blood work to Confrontation Teaching Hospital in Kumasi for analysis. "Results take a week," she said. "Come back next Thursday. Bring someone with you, a family member or friend." "Why?" Dr. Abena's face was gentle but serious. "Because depending on what we find, you might need support." Amma left the clinic feeling strange. Not hopeful, hope felt too dangerous, but less alone. For 4 years, she'd been told the problem was her lack of discipline, her moral failing. Now someone was saying maybe it's not. She walked back through the market, past Kofi's fabric stall. He was inside, laughing with a kosua, oblivious. Amma kept walking. That week stretched like taffy. She wove baskets, saved money, avoided questions. At night, she traced the clay plate fragments she'd kept, sharp edges, broken but still whole enough to reassemble. Thursday came. She arrived at the clinic at 9:45 a.m., her mother beside her. Dr. Abena led them into her small office, closed the door and opened a manila folder. "Amma," she said quietly, "I need you to listen very carefully. What I'm about to tell you will change everything." Dr. Abena's office was small, barely 3 meters across, but it felt vast in its silence. Amma sat in the plastic chair, her mother's hand gripping hers. The manila folder lay open on the desk between them. Medical forms, lab printouts with numbers Amma couldn't decipher, a referral letter stamped with the Confrontation Teaching Hospital logo. Dr. Abena leaned forward. Hands folded. "Your hormone panel came back," she said. "Specifically your cortisol levels." "What's cortisol?" Amma's mother asked. "A hormone produced by the adrenal glands. It regulates metabolism, blood pressure, stress response. In healthy people, cortisol rises and falls throughout the day." Dr. Abena paused. "In your daughter, it's chronically elevated, 3 times the normal range." Amma's pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" Dr. Abena pulled out a diagram of the human body, pointed to 2 small glands above the kidneys. "These are your adrenal glands. when they produce too much cortisol for too long. It causes a condition called Cushing's syndrome. The name hung in the air like a foreign word. Cushing's syndrome, Dr. Abina repeated slowly, causes rapid weight gain, especially in the face and abdomen. Swelling, fatigue, high blood pressure, stretch marks, mood changes, everything you've been experiencing for 4 years. Amma's mouth went dry. But I thought I was just... Everyone said I was eating too much. You weren't. Dr. Abina's voice was firm, almost fierce. This isn't about food. This isn't about discipline. Your body was flooded with a hormone that rewrites how you store fat, how you retain water, how your muscles break down. She met Amma's eyes. You could have starved yourself and the weight would have stayed. Amma's mother gasped. So she's been sick. This whole time? Yes, the word was a key turning in a lock. 4 years of shame, of blame, of Kofi's disgust and the village's whispers. All of it built on a lie. Amma's hands trembled. What causes it? Dr. Abina's expression grew more serious. Usually a benign tumor, most often on the pituitary gland in the brain, sometimes on the adrenal glands themselves. She pointed to the diagram again. The tumor produces excess ACTH, a hormone that tells the adrenals to make cortisol. It's like a switch that won't turn off. A tumor? Amma's voice cracked. I have a tumor. The ultrasound didn't show adrenal tumors, so it's likely pituitary. We'll need an MRI to confirm, but yes, that's the most common cause. Silence. Amma's mother broke first. Can it be treated? Yes, surgery to remove the tumor, usually through the nose. It's delicate but effective. After removal, cortisol levels normalize. The weight comes off gradually. Blood pressure stabilizes. Most patients recover fully. Amma heard the words but couldn't process them. Surgery, tumor, recovery. How long? She whispered. How long have I had this tumor? Based on your symptom timeline, probably 4 years. Maybe longer. 4 years of Kofi calling her lazy. 4 years of village women clucking their tongues. 4 years of her own body betraying her. And no one had thought to check if something was medically wrong. Why didn't anyone catch this sooner? Her mother demanded, anger rising. Dr. Abina's face softened with regret. Cushing's is rare. Many doctors miss it. And in communities where weight gain is blamed on lifestyle, women especially are dismissed. I'm sorry it took this long. Amma stared at the lab printout. Numbers, data, proof. Does my husband need to know? She asked quietly. Dr. Abina blinked, surprised. That's your choice. But you'll need support for surgery. Someone to help with recovery, finances. He won't help. Amma's voice was flat. He'll say I'm making excuses. Her mother squeezed her hand. Then we don't tell him yet. Let's figure out the surgery first. Dr. Abina nodded slowly. The Women's Cooperative has a health fund. I can apply on your behalf. Surgery costs about 8,000 cedis. With the fund covering half and a payment plan, it's manageable. 8,000 cedis. Amma had saved maybe 600 in her secret account. How long until surgery? Amma asked. If we schedule now, maybe 6 weeks. The hospital has a wait list. 6 weeks. 42 days. Amma thought of Kofi parading a kosua through the market. Thought of the broken clay plate in her pocket. Thought of the way he'd snarled, "You've had enough," for 10 women in front of 50 witnesses. A strange calm settled over her. Schedule it, she said. Dr. Abina smiled. Small, but real. I'll call today. In the meantime, we'll start you on medication to lower cortisol temporarily. It won't cure anything, but it might ease the swelling. Give you more energy. They left the clinic with a prescription, a surgery referral, and a truth that changed everything. Amma's mother wept in the taxi home. All this time people blamed you, even me. Oh, my daughter, I'm so sorry. Amma stared out the window. She wasn't crying. She felt hollow but not empty. Hollowed out like a gourd scraped clean, ready to be filled with something new. I'm going to tell him, she said. Kofi? Yes. Why? He doesn't deserve, and I'm not doing it for him. Amma turned to her mother. I'm doing it for me. I want to see his face when he realizes he's been wrong for 4 years. Her mother studied her, then nodded. When? Tonight. Kofi was home when Amma arrived, eating rice at the small table. He looked up, surprised. What do you want? No greeting. No warmth. Amma set the medical folder on the table. I went to the clinic. Got test results. He glanced at the folder, uninterested. And? I have Cushing's syndrome. It's a medical condition. A tumor causing my weight gain. For 4 years. Kofi stared at her. Then he laughed, short, bitter. A tumor? That's your excuse now. It's not an excuse. It's a diagnosis. From a real doctor, with blood tests. He shoved the folder away without opening it. You'll say anything to avoid responsibility. Next, you'll tell me it's my fault for not coddling you enough. Amma felt ice in her veins. I thought you'd want to know. I'm having surgery in 6 weeks. Surgery? He snorted. With what money? I'm not paying for your fantasy treatments. I'm not asking you to. Good, because I'm done. He stood, looming. I've been patient, Amma. I've tried. But you've given up on yourself. And now you're inventing diseases to justify it. I'm moving on with a kosua. Yes, she respects herself. She's young and naive and doesn't know you yet. Amma's voice was calm, cold. Give it time. Kofi's face darkened. Get out! You don't live here anymore. Amma picked up the medical folder. I know. I came to give you a chance to do the right thing. You chose not to. I won't forget that. She walked out behind her. Kofi muttered. Dramatic as always, but his hands, she noticed, were shaking. The next morning, news spread through the village like smoke. Kofi announced his engagement to a kosua. Not quietly, not privately. He posted it on the village WhatsApp group, shared it with the elders, even commissioned a banner for his fabric shop, Kofi and a kosua, engagement ceremony, January 18th, Chief's Palace Hall, 6 weeks away. The same day Amma's surgery was scheduled, the same venue where he'd humiliated her. Amma heard the news from a neighbor. Saw the banner herself when she walked past the shop. Kosua stood inside beaming, showing off a small ring. Amma felt nothing. No jealousy, no rage, just cold calculation. She returned to Dr. Abina's office. Can you move my surgery date? Why? I need it 2 weeks earlier. I need to recover before January 18th. Dr. Abina frowned. That's cutting it close. Recovery takes time. You'll still be weak, possibly swollen from surgery, but alive. And lighter. And able to stand. Understanding dawned in Dr. Abina's eyes. Amma, what are you planning? Justice. Dr. Abina hesitated, then made the call. 2 days later, the surgery was moved to December 20th. 4 weeks away, Amma began preparing. She told no one except her mother and Dr. Abina. She continued selling baskets, saving every cedi. The medication Dr. Abina prescribed started working, slowly, subtly. The swelling in her face eased slightly. She had more energy, could walk farther without breathlessness. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to hope. She also did something else. She took the 3 clay plate fragments from Efua's engagement party and brought them to a potter in the next village. Can you reassemble this? Make it whole again. The potter examined the pieces. It'll have visible cracks. Gold resin to fill the gaps like kintsugi. It won't be the same. Good, Amma said. I don't want it the same. I want it stronger. 2 weeks later, she picked up the plate. The cracks were filled with gold lines, fractures that now gleamed. She also found the torn blue wrapper Kofi had thrown away. Her mother had saved it, folded in a trunk. Amma spent evenings stitching the pieces back together, reinforcing the seams with indigo thread. December 20th arrived. Amma's mother and Dr. Abena accompanied her to Komfo Anokie Teaching Hospital. The surgery took 4 hours. They accessed the pituitary gland through her nose, removed a benign tumor the size of a grape. When Amma woke, Dr. Abena was there. It's out. Clean margins. You did beautifully. Recovery was brutal. Headaches that felt like her skull was cracking. Nausea that left her unable to eat for 3 days. Fatigue so deep she slept 16 hours straight, but also immediate changes. Within 48 hours, the facial swelling began to recede. Within 1 week, she'd lost 5 kilograms, not from dieting, but from her cortisol finally dropping. Her mother brought her a mirror on day 10. Amma stared, cheekbones emerging, jawline reappearing, eyes that looked less puffy, more alert. By January 10th, 8 days before the engagement, Amma had lost 12 kilograms total. She looked like a different woman, not the woman from 8 years ago. Someone new, someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself with gold thread. She tried on the reconstructed blue wrapper. It fit. She held the gold-veined plate. It gleamed. On January 17th, the day before the engagement, Amma walked to the chief's palace, found the event coordinator. I need to deliver something to the ceremony tomorrow, she said. A gift for the couple. May I bring it personally? The coordinator, an older woman who remembered Amma from before, looked her up and down, shocked at the transformation. Amma? Is that you? It is. What happened? I got better. Amma smiled, small, dangerous. Will you let me in tomorrow? The woman hesitated, then nodded. Come at midday. During the kola nut ceremony. Perfect. January 18th dawned clear and hot. The chief's palace hall glittered with preparation. White and gold fabric draped from the rafters. Fresh flowers lined the entrance. A professional photographer tested his lights, adjusting the angle for the couple's entrance. 200 chairs filled the courtyard, already half occupied by guests in their finest kente and lace. Kofi stood near the front, resplendent in crimson and gold. His smile was wide, confident. Today he would erase the embarrassment of his failed first marriage. Today he would begin again with a woman who fit his image of success. A kosua emerged from the dressing room, nervous but radiant in white lace, embroidered with silver thread. She was young, too young to see the cracks in Kofi's charm, too naive to question why his first wife had left so quietly. The drummers began. The ceremony opened with libation, the elder pouring palm wine and calling on the ancestors to bless the union. May this bond be built on truth, the elder intoned. Kofi nodded solemnly. Several guests shifted, uncomfortable. They remembered the plate-shattering incident at Ifua's engagement. Some had seen Kofi parade a kosua through the market, while still technically married, but no one spoke. Silence was easier than confrontation. The kola nut ceremony began, the symbolic sharing of bitter truth before sweet union. The elder presented the kola to Kofi and a kosua, broke it, distributed pieces to the couple. In marriage, the elder said, we must share truth, even when bitter. That's when the courtyard doors opened. Amma walked in. Silence dropped like a stone into still water. She wore the reconstructed blue wrapper, the one Kofi had torn and discarded. The indigo fabric caught the midday light. The stitching was visible, deliberate, gold thread reinforcing every seam, but it was her face that stopped breath. 12 kilograms lighter, cheekbones sharp, eyes clear and fierce. She moved like water, smooth, unstoppable, inevitable. Whispers erupted. Is that Amma? What happened to her? How did she? Kofi's face drained of color. His hand holding the kola nut trembled visibly. A kosua turned, confused. Who is that? Amma walked to the center of the courtyard, stopping 3 meters from the couple. She carried something wrapped in cloth the shape of a plate. Forgive my interruption, she said. Her voice was calm, steady, loud enough to carry. But truth cannot wait, the elder frowned. Amma, this is a ceremony built on lies. She turned to a kosua. Sister, I don't know you well, but you deserve to know who you're binding yourself to. A kosua's confusion deepened. I don't understand. Let me help. Amma unwrapped the cloth, revealing the gold-veined clay plate. A woman in the third row gasped. She'd been at Ifua's party, had seen it shatter. This plate was broken 4 months ago, right here in this courtyard. Amma held it up. Sunlight caught the gold lines like lightning. Kofi ripped food from my hands and shattered it because he said I'd eaten enough for 10 women. Murmurs grew louder. Several guests nodded. They'd been there. Kofi found his voice. This is manipulation. You're bitter because I moved on. You moved on while I was dying. Amma's voice didn't rise. That made it worse. For 4 years I gained 40 kilograms. My body changed in ways I couldn't control. She turned slowly, addressing the crowd now. For 4 years Kofi called me lazy. An embarrassment, a burden. He said I'd given up, that I couldn't stop eating. Her gaze swept the courtyard. Some of you heard him. Some of you laughed. Some of you looked away. Guilt rippled through the crowd. People shifted in their seats. He threw away my wedding clothes. He moved to a separate room. He brought this woman, she gestured to a kosua, into our home to mock me. Kofi's face reddened. You're twisting. Am I? Amma pulled papers from her wrapper. Medical documents, lab results, the hospital discharge summary. I was sick, Kofi. I had a medical condition called Cushing's syndrome, a tumor in my brain flooding my body with hormones. Gasps, real ones this time. The photographer's camera clicked reflexively. Dr. Abina stepped forward from the crowd's edge. It's true. I diagnosed her 3 months ago. Cushing syndrome is a rare endocrine disorder. Ama's weight gain was a symptom, not a choice. She had surgery in December to remove the tumor. She held up her own medical credentials. I have the scans. The lab results. Cortisol levels 3 times normal. This is documented medical fact. The crowd's energy shifted. Whispers became murmurs, became exclamations. Ama's voice cut through. I told Kofi about the diagnosis. Showed him these same papers. Do you want to know what he said? She looked directly at him. His jaw clenched. Sweat ran down his temple. He said I was making excuses, that I was inventing diseases. He refused to help pay for surgery. He told me to get out of our home while I was still sick. Elder Kwame stood, face grave. Kofi, is this true? Kofi's hands fisted. She's exaggerating. I didn't answer the question, the elder said sharply. Did she show you proof of a medical diagnosis? Silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Yes, Kofi's voice was barely audible. And did you help her? I thought she was lying. Based on what? Dr. Abena's voice was scalpel sharp. Your medical degree. Or your pride? Kofi's face twisted. I had been patient for years. She kept gaining weight, kept making excuses about diets not working. Because she had a tumor. Ama's mother stood, voice shaking with fury. My daughter was dying and you called her lazy. You paraded other women while she could barely walk upstairs. I saw you mock her at the market, a vendor shouted. Called her a sack of yams in front of 50 people. You told my wife she was a bad example for our daughters, another woman added. Said she'd let herself go. You introduced her as your burden at my son's wedding. An older man yelled. The dam broke. Voice after voice, witness after witness. The courtyard became a tribunal. A young woman stood, one of Kofi's own cousins. You told me last month that Ama abandoned you, that she was too proud to be a good wife. You lied. Kofi's eyes darted, looking for allies. Found none. I didn't know. How was I supposed to? You could have asked. Ama's voice finally rose. 4 years, Kofi. 4 years you never once said, are you okay? Do you need a doctor? How can I help? You only asked, why aren't you trying harder? Her voice broke. Not from weakness, from rage finally given air. I tried everything. I starved myself. I walked until my feet bled. I prayed until my voice gave out. And you called me worthless. Tears ran down her face now. She didn't wipe them. You broke me, not the tumor. You. She held up the gold-veined plate, hands shaking. You shattered this in rage. I rebuilt it in patience. You destroyed me with cruelty. I rebuilt myself with truth. The plate caught the light, every golden fracture glowing. That's the difference between us. The courtyard was silent except for someone crying. Not Ama. A guest, one of the women who'd whispered about her. A kosua's face was wet too. She looked at Kofi like seeing him for the first time. Her hands moved to her neck, removing the engagement necklace. Slow, deliberate. No, Kofi said. A kosua. She's manipulating. Stop. A kosua's voice was quiet but final. She placed the necklace on the altar. You told me she abandoned you, that she was cruel, that you were the victim. She stepped back. But you're the one who's cruel, and I won't marry a man who abandons his wife when she's dying. She turned and walked out, white lace trailing. Her mother and sisters followed. Kofi lunged after her. A kosua, wait! Elder Kwame blocked him. Let her go. This is insane. I'm the victim here. You're done. The elder's voice was iron. Sit down. Kofi stood there, crimson kente suddenly ridiculous, gold thread mocking. His mouth opened, closed. No words came. Guests began standing. Not in protest, in silent judgment. One by one, then in groups, they left. An older woman stopped beside Ama, touched her shoulder. I'm sorry I didn't speak up before. Another, you're stronger than all of us. Within 10 minutes, the courtyard was nearly empty. The photographer packed his camera. The caterers quietly removed untouched food. Kofi stood alone at the altar, surrounded by 200 empty chairs and wilting flowers. The elder approached him. Kofi, you violated the very vow you spoke 8 years ago, through storm and harvest. You abandoned her in the storm. That is unforgivable. Kofi's voice was hoarse, broken. I didn't know she was really sick. You didn't care to know. That's worse. The elder turned to Amma. What do you want? The council will enforce it. Amma looked at Kofi, really looked. Saw not a monster, but a man who'd chosen pride over compassion. Who'd blamed her for his own shame. She felt no triumph. Just exhaustion and relief. I want a divorce, I want my dowry returned, every CD. And I want 8 years of unpaid domestic labor compensated at market rate. The Women's Council can calculate it. The elder nodded. Agreed. What else? A public apology. Written, read at Sunday's church service and posted on the village WhatsApp group. Kofi flinched. You want to destroy me? I want you to tell the truth. Amma's voice was soft, final. That's not destruction. That's accountability. The elder looked at Kofi. You'll comply, or the council will seize your shop inventory as restitution. Understood? Kofi's shoulders sagged. He nodded. Amma turned to leave, then stopped. She looked back one last time. I forgive you, she said quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. She set the gold-veined plate on the altar. But I will never forget, and I will never return. She walked out of the courtyard, spine straight, head high, blue wrapper flowing like water. Behind her, Kofi sank into a chair. The ceremony that was supposed to erase his past had instead exposed it. And in the village the story spread like wildfire. The woman who was mocked for being fat had stood before 200 witnesses and proven that cruelty, no matter how loud, cannot survive the weight of truth. The village council convened 3 days later. 15 elders sat beneath the ancient baobab tree, the traditional place for resolving disputes. Kofi sat on one side, Amma on the other. Dr. Abena attended as medical witness. Elder Kwame presided. We dissolve the marriage between Kofi Mensah and Amma Mensah, effective immediately. Now we address restitution. He turned to Kofi. You will return Amma's dowry, 12,000 cedis, within 30 days. Kofi's eyes widened. I don't have liquidate assets if necessary. The women's cooperative treasurer stood. For 8 years of domestic labor, cooking, cleaning, household management, at market rate, total compensation is 18,000 cedis. Kofi went pale. That's impossible. You called her worthless, the treasurer said calmly. But her work had value. Pay or we seize your shop. I'll pay, Kofi said quickly. 6,000 immediately, 2,000 monthly for 6 months. Miss one payment, we take the shop. Kofi nodded, defeated. Elder Kwame continued. You will write a public apology acknowledging Amma's medical condition and your failure. Read it at Sunday service. Post it on the village WhatsApp group. I'll write it. Finally, Elder Kwame addressed the full council. This case exposes a larger failure. How many women suffer medical conditions dismissed as laziness? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the elders. Effective immediately. Any public shaming of a spouse requires proof that medical causes were ruled out first. Dr. Abena will conduct free health screenings for women reporting unexplained symptoms. Dr. Abena stood. The clinic establishes a women's health fund today. Any woman needing diagnostic testing can apply. We'll start with Cushing syndrome awareness and expand from there. A female elder added, we'll train community health workers to recognize warning signs. No more women suffering in silence. The council dismissed. Kofi approached Amma hesitantly. Can we talk? Elder Kwame nodded permission. They walked a short distance away. I'm sorry, Kofi said, voice rough. I know that's not enough, but are you sorry you hurt me or sorry you got caught? He flinched. Both. I was angry. You changed and I blamed you instead of asking if you needed help. Amma felt something shift. Not forgiveness renewed, but understanding. Kofi wasn't evil, just weak, proud, afraid of his own shame. I accept your apology for my own peace, she said. But understand this. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I will never come back. That part of my life is over. Tears slid down his face. I know. I don't deserve... No, you don't. Her voice was gentle but firm. But maybe you'll learn. Maybe next time you'll ask questions instead of making assumptions." She turned away and apologized to a kosua. "You used her to hurt me. She deserves better too." "I will." Amma walked back to the council circle. She didn't look back. Sunday came. Kofi stood before the church congregation, hands shaking. "I publicly shamed my wife for a medical condition she couldn't control," he read. "I called her lazy when she was sick. I refused to help when she needed me most. I broke my vow before God and this community." His voice cracked. He looked up, found Amma in the third row. "Amma, you deserved better. I failed you completely." Heavy silence filled the church. Then Amma stood. She didn't speak. She simply nodded once, acknowledgement, not absolution, and sat back down. It was enough. After the service, 5 women approached Dr. Abena. "I've had symptoms like Amma's. Could I be tested?" "Yes. Come to the clinic. We'll check." Within 3 weeks, the clinic diagnosed Ya with hypothyroidism. Her weight gain, fatigue, and depression weren't character flaws. They were treatable. Ifua had polycystic ovary syndrome. The irregular periods and facial hair she'd hidden for years, manageable with medication. Adjoa's laziness was severe anemia. 1 blood transfusion later, she could walk a kilometer without breathlessness. Each diagnosis the same story. Years of blame, years of shame. Finally, answers. The women started meeting weekly at the clinic, not for treatment, but for community. They called themselves Entaboa, help in Twiama, attended sometimes, shared her story, listened to theirs. One evening, a young woman asked, "How did you find the courage to stand up at that engagement?" Amma thought carefully. "I didn't feel courageous. I felt exhausted. But I realized carrying his shame was heavier than facing him." She held up her wrist, the blue wrapper cloth she now wore as a bracelet. "When something breaks you, you have 2 choices, stay broken or rebuild yourself stronger. Forgiveness gave me peace. Boundaries gave me freedom." The women nodded. Several had their own broken pieces they were learning to reassemble. Outside, the village continued. Markets bustled. Drummers practiced. Life moved forward. But something had shifted. Women spoke up more. Husbands asked more questions. The clinic's waiting room stayed full. And Amma? She walked through it all with quiet power. Not a victim, not a hero, just a woman who'd refused to carry shame that was never hers to bear. 18 months later. Amma stood in her textile shop doorway, watching sunrise paint Kumasi market gold. The shop was small but hers, every bolt of fabric earned, not given. 5 women worked the looms inside, 2 from Entaboa, Dr. Abena's support group. 1 recently diagnosed with thyroid disease. 1 was a kosua. She'd appeared months after the failed engagement. "I need work, and I need to learn from someone strong." Amma had hired her. They'd both survived the same man. That created something stronger than rivalry. The shop specialized in reconstructed fabrics, torn cloth stitched with contrasting thread. Damage turned into patterns. Customers called it kintsugi cloth, broken made beautiful. Amma's body had settled at 68 kilograms, healthy, strong, cortisol levels normal. The tumor hadn't returned. She still wore blue often. Still kept the gold-veined plate on her shelf, the one she'd rebuilt with gold resin. Kofi she saw occasionally. He'd paid every installment, terrified of losing his shop. His business had shrunk, but he survived. He'd joined the church's men's accountability group. He wasn't redeemed. But he was trying. That was his journey, not hers. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Abena, new case. Woman with unexplained weight gain. Husband threatening divorce. "Can you talk to her?" Amma replied, "Send her at 2 p.m. I'll make tea." This happened often now. Women who needed to hear their bodies weren't betraying them. That answers existed. That they deserved support, not shame. Amma always made time. Inside, sunlight streamed through windows draped in blue and gold. Akosua looked up from her loom. "Another one?" "Another one. You're building an army." Amma touched the blue bracelet on her wrist, the wrapper cloth never far. "I'm just reminding them they were never alone." That evening, she sat on her porch with tea and the day's earnings. 93 cedis profit. Not wealth enough. The sky turned purple, then indigo. Drums played somewhere. Children laughed. Life continued. She whispered to the darkening sky, to God, Karma, the universe, whoever listened, "Thank you. Not for the pain. For surviving it. For the strength that comes only from breaking and rebuilding yourself with your own hands. What would you do if someone you loved mocked you at your lowest point? If you faced injustice, medical, emotional, or otherwise, drop your story in the comments. Your truth matters. You're not alone. This is one of many African stories proving resilience outlasts cruelty. These real-life stories from African folklore and modern experience remind us that touching stories of survival become anthems of hope. Life stories like Ama's show Karma doesn't need our help, just time. Hit subscribe for more stories where truth wins and the silenced find their voice. Next week, a market vendor falsely accused of theft discovers the accuser's secret and rebuilds an entire community's justice system.